AJ and I are totally in agreement with this. But the thing is, I wanted to put Joe Montana on the list. Couldn't put him.
Oh my gosh. I can't even sit still anymore.
And AJ just knocked his camera over.
I can't sit still. I knocked my camera. That's 4 times. Caleb, I might have to glue myself to the seat. What are you doing? Come on, somebody. I'm Caldwell, and he's Caleb. Welcome back to episode 3. We're pumped. We're excited. I realize I say we're excited a lot, so I'm going to use a different word today. We're hyped. We're hyped for episode 3. In Sports and Scripture, we're talking about a biblical worldview of excelling. What does it look like to succeed? We'll then go into That Was Live, where I will talk about the greatest road trip pit stop I ever had in watching and listening to a game live on the radio and then on TV. And then we go into double dipping, which is anybody's game. It's anybody's, who knows what's going to happen. I'm coming at you. You're coming at me. It's always a bunch of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
I'll let you know. I'm coming at you a little bit today. Tonight. So
Alrighty.
Yeah, double dipping. Buckle up for that. I'm hyped, to use AJ's word. Hyped for double dipping. Then we'll go into Beyond the Numbers, and I'll venture into basketball with a certain offensive statistic that we'll talk about. And then from there, it's High Five, and we are listing our top 5 NFL players of all time. So last week we did baseball. Now we're going into football. So yeah, that'll wrap up this episode.
Yes, sir. Episode 3, getting ready to rumble. It's time to talk all things sports from a Christ-centered, Bible-saturated worldview. Let's roll. Welcome in to Sports and Scripture, episode 3 edition. We're talking about a biblical worldview of excelling. What does it mean to succeed in sports? This is where we talk about sports and different aspects of sports from a biblical worldview. We look to God's word to give us the answers, the insight, and the help. And so, Caleb, kick us off. What is a biblical worldview of excelling, and how does that translate into the sporting world?
Yeah. So when we think about success and excelling, from a biblical point of view, it's kind of an interesting concept, I think, to think about, because as believers, our goal shouldn't necessarily be success. Ultimately, our goal is to be pleasing to God. That's kind of our main goal. I wanted to go to a passage in Philippians 3. This was the first passage that stood out to me. But in the beginning of Philippians 3, Paul is he's listing out, he said of all people, he has reason to have confidence in the flesh. So just talking about, and then he lists off, he says, if anyone else has a mind to put confidence in the flesh, I far more. And he just lists off all these kind of qualifications that he has and different accomplishment sort of things. That's how we can think of it. Of all these things that he's reasons why he could put confidence in the flesh, meaning confidence in himself and what he had done, and all these things that would be looked at as worldly gain, which there's an obvious, I think, comparison to sports to be made there. But then verse 7 is this big turning point, and it's so dramatic. I think he lists off all these things that sound so good, found blameless, and all these things. But he says, but whatever things were gained to me, those things I've counted as loss for the sake of Christ. More than that, I count all things to be lost in view of the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things and count them but rubbish, so that I may gain Christ. So again, what's the thing about success, or like what you want out of life from sports? It's the same as our goal should be the same as in life, and it's the most important thing is, it says here, so that I may gain Christ. That's the most significant accomplishment. It's not an accomplishment because it's not something we do. It's a gift from the Lord. But everything else, all of our worldly gain and accomplishment, and all these things that he could have put so much confidence in and had so much pride in, he says they're lost in comparison to the value of knowing Christ. So again, that's the biggest thing is, do you know Christ or do you not? And even this goes into the gospel a little bit after that, and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own derived from the law, but that which is through faith in Christ. The only way we can be righteous is because of Christ. We can't be righteous on our own, but we can be viewed as righteous by God because Christ was righteous, and we have faith in him. He offers forgiveness for sins. Like Isaiah says, the best we can do on our own is like filthy rags. And so really, that's what it comes down to. Do you know Christ? That's not a successful life, but it's a life that is worth living, is a life that knows Christ. Any life apart from Christ is not worth living. I wanted to jump to one other thing in Luke, just before I'll hand it over to you, AJ.
Yeah, no worries.
Luke 18 gives, there's a parable, and it's maybe well known to you, but it's of the tax collector and a Pharisee and a tax collector. And I just want to point out there's two examples of a prayer to the Lord. And the Pharisee starts talking about all the things he'd done. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes of all that I get. He said, I thank you I'm not like other people. So it's just a comparison to other people. And so another part of a successful life, it's not even being a good person, because he lists off all these good things that he did. He doesn't do these evil, wicked things. He just outwardly, he doesn't do these things. But it says the comparison, but the tax collector, standing some distance away, was even unwilling to lift his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, a sign of humility, saying, God, be merciful to me, the sinner. And then verse 14 is huge of Luke 18. I tell you, this man went to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be exalted. So just to tie a little more into sports, our goal in sports and what's successful is, again, a life pleasing to the Lord. And what's a life pleasing to the Lord? A life of humility. And that's the person that will be exalted. So that brings up, for the athlete, obvious implications and warnings, just because, AJ, you know as well, that sports is very much geared towards self-exaltation and bringing yourself up and thinking high of yourself. So it's a big danger, but when it comes down to it, again, it's great and it's a blessing and it's great to win and to have these, to win championships and all those things and set records, have these great feats, but really they are nothing. They're lost compared to the value of knowing Christ. So our goal in sport should be to be humble before the Lord, because that's the one that will be exalted, and that's the one that is pleasing to the Lord.
Amen. Well said, bro. Those are some very, very good points, very good passages as well. Love the Luke 18. Love the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. It's a great reminder of humility. I love how you touched on humility. That's not even something that I even thought about to touch on with this, but I think it's important to touch on it. So I want to take a kind of a different approach from a biblical perspective, kind of on to add on to the points you've already made, which again were very well said. Colossians 3. I want to go to Colossians 3. Again, if you guys are watching or listening, if you have a Bible, we encourage you guys to get it out, read it, or if you're just listening along. We recognize this is the Word of God. We recognize this has sufficient power. So as Caleb has read it, as I'm going to read it, we recognize this is the answer. That not anything that we're going to say is the answer. This is the answer. So in Colossians 3, verse 23, it says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. The point that I want to make with this is that excelling is actually a biblical principle. We strive to excel. We strive to succeed in life, but there's a catch to it. And Caleb touched on it so beautifully in Philippians of we want to gain Christ. Our excelling is to excel so that we may gain Christ. And that's what Colossians 3 is talking about, is whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. And so that's where I want to start with this biblical approach that I want to take to this, is that excelling from a biblical standpoint, it's a biblical principle, but it has to come alongside humility. And that's why I love, brother, what you said about humility, that we cannot excel unless we know what we're excelling in. Or we cannot excel unless we know what the world's definition of excelling is, and how we want to be the tax collector in the parable, which, by the way, is astonishing in and of itself, because in that time period, the tax collector would be compared to someone that we would despise today, someone that we would not look to as worthy of our respect. And he's the one who's humbling himself. He's the one who is being rewarded because of his humility. So that's where I want to start with this. I also want to turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. And this is where I want to tie in the biblical or the sporting aspect to this a little bit. The appeal, the eye appeal that sports has to this. And Paul understood this. We have to think that Paul in some way did athletics. I mean, I'm playing ultimate frisbee with people, once a week during this summer. Like I'm not an athlete anymore, but I still enjoy playing athletics. We have to think that Paul was the same way. That he enjoyed going to athletic events or just having fun playing athletics, whatever they were in the first century church. But 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24, Paul says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it." This is from a sporting perspective that Paul understands. Run so you can win. Run so that you can win and succeed and excel in this. This is a biblical principle. But then we look to the sporting world. And Caleb, you touched on a little bit in that parable of what the Pharisee desires when he's praying, and in translation, what the sporting world is desiring when they're playing. And the sporting definition of excelling is very night and day different from the biblical one. When we look at the worldly definition of excelling, the sporting definition specifically. And two things immediately came to mind, Caleb. And two things immediately came to mind for you guys that are listening and watching. And that's the Hall of Fame and leaving a legacy. Mm-hmm. These things are so vitally important in the sporting culture that they trump everything else you do in your career. They talk about a lot of off the field stuff and off the court stuff, and you do off the court stuff. But I think in a way they secretly understand and desire that what's most important is that people remember you. People need to remember you by the time you retire. People need to remember how you played. People need to remember how you interacted with people. And that's all well and good. But I think of John Calvin, who was a theologian. He wasn't an athlete, but I think the principle, the illustration still applies. John Calvin, when he died, or it was John Knox, one of the two, when he was getting close to death, he said, "I don't even care if you put my name on a tombstone. I just want people to know that I preached Christ, that I was a man after God, following after God." That is not the case with the sporting world, unfortunately. And this is where I want to really bring this in and really bring this to a head, and look at the very next verse in 1 Corinthians 9. So Caleb has touched on the humility side of this, which is such a good point to realize, that we want to gain Christ. We count everything as lost so we can gain Christ. And in the same breath, Paul understands that we want to run so we can obtain this with the right perspective. But what does 1 Corinthians 9:25 say? Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. And this is where this becomes so important, and something that I have so just fallen in love with more and more recently. During the summer, it's a time of just kind of isolation and trying to figure things out and get back in the groove of everything, and it can get really lonely. And it's causing me to realize, what is there to life? What is there to life? And I know I'm kind of going off script here a little bit, but when we think about this is the defining factor. We, as believers, Christian athletes, fans, whatever the case may be, are after an imperishable wreath. We are after the glory of heaven that we will receive one day. This hope that will not disappoint us. Mm-hmm. the perishable wreaths, the Super Bowl trophies, the World Series championships, the Stanley Cup championship, anything you can think of when you think of sporting accomplishments. Caleb mentioned they're as loss. They should be counted as rubbish to me gain Christ. Further, those things hold no weight. They don't hold a candle to the imperishable weight of glory that we will experience one day if we're in Christ. And so then this is the plea to you as the listener, or you as the person watching, is what is your perspective as you're watching sports? You know, many of you guys that are tuning in probably don't play sports. You just enjoy watching sports. Are you so wrapped up in this perishable wreath that this team has to win in order for you to feel like you had a fun time watching the game? Or are you bringing it into balance and realizing, I want to humble myself before God and realize that this longing for the imperishable wreath that I want to have, you know what, Caleb? You know what, listener? It brings about a healthy zeal for the perishable things. It brings about a balance, and it brings about a healthy admiration of accomplishments. Because we're not going to fall into the trap of saying, well, everyone just needs to get a participation trophy. You know, nobody can win, nobody can lose. It's just all you. No, we run so that we may win, Paul says. But we want the imperishable wreath more than we want the perishable one. Because when we see the glory of heaven, when we see the weight that holds, we realize, you know what? I want my team to win. I mean, Caleb's a Padres fan. He's been wanting to win a World Series for a long time. I mean, we want our teams to win. Like, this is a good thing that we desire. But at what cost are we going to allow that to become more important than the glory of heaven, guys? Think about that. The glory of heaven that we obtain as believers. That is kind of the head that I want to bring this to. And the closing thought that I want to make of that is why we compete. That is why we watch sports. Because we want our team to win. We want to succeed. We want to excel. Why, though? Because we've seen it in its perfect form. We see what excelling looks like in its perfect form because Christ died on the cross and rose again and is seated at the right hand of the Father. That's the greatest victory in the world. that is the greatest victory in the entire world. So I kind of rambled on and on, went off script a little bit, but
that's good.
That is the imperishable wreath. You know, think about the first century games that they ran and they competed so that the winner would get a wreath, like a wreath that showed that they were significant in the sporting world, athletic world. So just compare that to a trophy, it doesn't hold a candle to any of that. So those are my thoughts, and that's kind of, I think, how we look at this biblically from the Word of God. So
no, that's great. I just, even thinking about that sports imagery of running a race, it implies it's going to take effort. And it's going to be like Hebrews 12 says, run the race with endurance. You're going to be in for the long haul, and it's the day by day striving according to his power. So yeah, that's a great perspective to have. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, man, really encouraging. On that note, though, we're going to transition here over to AJ's segment. That was live.
Welcome back to That Was Live. I am very excited for this one. I'm hyped for this one, to use the word for the day of the podcast. I am retelling the joys and sorrows of my experiences as a sports fan. And today I'm talking about the best road trip pit stop I ever had. This was in 2018 actually. So it was my second year at Boyce, in between that time period. And I was on my way back to Boyce College, and it was on a Saturday. So I had spent time with the family, and it was exciting to be with them and just hang out with them. But I had to drive back on a Saturday. Well, it's in the middle of college football season. And if you guys know me, and you're going to find out a lot about me here pretty soon, as hopefully Caleb and I are able to continue doing this and get in a rhythm of doing this every week. I love college sports, and I'm trying to convince my partner in crime over here to jump on this wagon with me, because it's so much fun to follow college sports. I don't understand why Caleb doesn't want to do it, but we'll get into that at a different point. Do you have anything to say for yourself before I continue?
I prefer watching the pros play.
Good gosh. Okay.
Like,
That
I'd rather,
I'm not even gonna address it anymore. Okay.
no,
We're
no
just gonna
comparison.
we're gonna move on. Anyways, I was on my way back to Boys College on a Saturday, which means it was college football Saturday. And that means it was an Iowa State football game on a Saturday afternoon, and we were going on the road to number 3 Oklahoma. Now, Iowa State football is nothing really to sneeze at. We are not good at all. We're mediocre at best. We're slowly climbing up. I mean, hold on, like give us a couple of years, and you might be surprised. But we're nothing like, you know, an Ohio State or an Oklahoma or Clemson or anything like that. So needless to say, we were going into Oklahoma. We hadn't won there since like the dinosaur ages. Like we it had been forever. Like the last time they had won at Oklahoma, I think it was like 1969. So it was like I was following the game, but I was like, I'll find out the final score later. Like I don't want to look at that. I don't want to follow that. That changed very quickly. Because by halftime, it was a one-score game. It was a one-score game at halftime. And I'm about halfway to Boyce, and I'm like, hold on one second. This is not supposed to be this close. As it gets into the third quarter, and Iowa State takes the lead. Now, mind you, I'm following this on Gamecast. I am driving, like, legally. I'm driving and paying attention to the roads, and I'm doing what a good driver does. I'm not looking at my phone all the time, most of the time. and I'm realizing Iowa State's got a chance in this game, which I didn't even think was a possibility. But I was like, you know what? We're up by a score. Oklahoma's going to come back. And Oklahoma comes back. They take the lead, and Iowa State takes the lead again. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I'm following this on Gamecast, mind you. Now, let me give a quick side note to any sports fan who has had to follow an important game on Gamecast. It is brutal. It is absolutely brutal.
Especially football.
Especially football. You can't watch the game live. You can't find it on the radio, because when you go to a college in Kentucky like I do, and the teams that are playing are in Oklahoma and Iowa, that's not going to work because you're going to run out of radio range. And I tried to listen to the radio, and by the middle of the third quarter, it was static. And I was like, I was freaking out. I was freaking out and driving. And yeah, especially when you're following football on Gamecast, where it had like little plays and stuff. You see a big play and then a short play, another big play. And it's like, just stop the line. Like, make the line stop moving. Anyways, it gets into the fourth quarter, and Iowa State has a chance to win the game. And this is the best part about this story. And you guys are probably wondering, AJ, what does that have to do with this being a live sporting event? Well, I'm about to tell you. Because I pulled off the road. I was on my way to Boyce, and I was like, what's the time? Like, what do we – and I was like, there's a Buffalo Wild Wings right here. And I pulled off the side of the road, pulled into the Buffalo Wild Wings parking lot, sprinted in, and tried to find a seat. Like, I ran up to the Buffalo Wild Wings. You guys have ever been to Buffalo Wild Wings? They always have like a jersey on as their waiter stuff. It's like the same colors as what Caleb was wearing, which is really funny. And they're like, they're just standing there, and they're like, hey, how many? I feel like, looking back on this, I feel like I was so rude and terrible, but it was hilarious because I ran up and I was like, where's the Iowa State game? I need to find it. And they're like, here's the funniest part. And this might have to be like a hot take for another time. The people who work at Buffalo Wild Wings, most often the people have no idea about any sports. And it cracks me up. And it's like, there are 25 TVs and you don't know what game is what. Like, can you please get a new job or do your research and find out what the heck you are doing working at a place where sports literally surround you? Anyways, off my soapbox. I find a table, and the waiter comes up to me. Again, looking back on this, I probably was a lot more like not rude, like short and to the point with him than I should have been, because he was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" Because I was at a booth by myself, and I had the game on right in front of me. He's like, "Hey man, how's it going? Like, what can I get for you?" And I was like, hold on one second. I'm watching the Iowa State game right here. And he's like, "Oh, dude, that's awesome. Like, who's playing?" All this different stuff. And so we're having a conversation. And so it's a commercial break, and I was like, "Hey, I'll have this. He leaves. By the time he comes back, Iowa State had taken the lead. So when I walked in, I forgot to mention this fact. This is that was live moment. I walked in, Caleb, And I turned, like I was standing in front, like standing where they were going to give me a table. And I turned, I tried to find a TV, and I looked, and it was the 3rd and 8 play. And again, we'll have to go back at some point and watch all these highlights together. It was a 3rd and 8 play where we threw the game-winning touchdown to our star wide receiver, Alan Lazard. And I looked, like I turned, and it was like something out of a movie. And I was like, and I found it. And it was like happening in slow motion. And he caught it for a touchdown, and I was going ballistic inside. I couldn't do it outside. I was in a public place. I couldn't go ballistic outside. I was like losing it on the inside.
That's awesome.
I sit down, I get my food, and Iowa State upsets number 3 Oklahoma on the road on a Saturday, blew up the college football playoff rankings, blew up the entire college football season. And then I got back in my car and I went to Boise. And I had the biggest smile on my face because I saw the game-winning touchdown live. That was live in a Buffalo Wild Wings in the middle of Illinois, I think, at a place where all the coworkers need to understand what sports are, or they should not be working there.
Dude.
I'm off my soapbox. That was live. Iowa State upsets Oklahoma. Best pit stop on a road trip ever.
That is awesome, bro. I've never heard that. That's amazing.
It was unbelievable. I like blew up my social media about it. I was taking like all these pictures of the TV and just like I was, the only thing was missing was like me crying. Like it was like that crazy. It was that crazy.
Awesome.
But honestly, like I wasn't even sitting down when I saw the game-winning touchdown. It was like something out of a movie where like you're looking, trying to find like in Lord of the Rings when like Aragorn tries to like find Legolas, make sure he's still alive. I was like, and I found the TV, and it was like the slow motion. It was hilarious. Anyways,
and now Alan Lazard is a Packer. And
now Alan Lazard is a Packer, and he's gonna do big things for the Packers. I'm excited for you guys. He's a great wide receiver. I'm pumped that he's with you guys. I don't have an NFC team, so I'm always pulling for the Packers, anyways. So we'll have to talk about that at some point too.
Yeah.
But it's not time for that. It's time for double Dippin. This is hot take time. It is about to get hype up in here. We're going to keep using that code, that keyword for the podcast. It's episode 3. We already have 2 in the books, Caleb. We had back-to-back doubles back in the day. We're about to get back-to-back hot takes, get hyped like we did back then. It's go time. We're about to strap in our seatbelt and go on this roller coaster because it is time for double Dippin. I'll take the first dip right now. And it's a question.
It's a question.
It's a question.
How is your hot take a question?
My hot take is a question.
Do I have to answer the question?
You do have to answer the question. And your answer can be short because then I will back up my answer. But I still want to hear your answer because you refused to answer it last week. So Caleb, who is the greatest athlete of all time?
Oh, no.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not listened to episode 2, pause this right now, go back, and listen to our top 5, our high 5 of the top 5 MLB players of all time, and listen to the blasphemy of Caleb's mouth. There's a reason that episode 2 was called He Said What? Because Caleb said something that he needs to own right now, and you need to give a definitive answer. You have to give a lot of details unless you want to. But that is my hot take, because I'm about to give an answer that I'm going to be able to back up pretty well. And I'm hoping that you agree with me. But I want to hear you first. Who is the greatest athlete of all time?
Okay, so
what had happened was
you see what happened was I need a little bit of clarification here.
Oh my gosh.
No, I know, and I'm stalling for certain reasons because I might want to say
I ask who's the
certain
greatest
answers
athlete
for a
of all
hot
time.
take. No, I might. What was that?
I said I asked who is the greatest athlete of all time, and Caleb goes, I need some clarification on that question.
Are you saying? See, because the other thing is I might want to save it kind of for a hot take.
Oh boy.
Depending on what this is, are we saying who was the best in their sport ever, or are we saying who was? Because if I say who's the greatest athlete, like I'm tempted to say a guy like Bo Jackson because he played 2 sports. You know.
Okay.
So in terms of just who's the greatest athlete, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Of course, I haven't answered this question in my head before you asked me it.
Yeah.
And actually, if you go back and you listen, I didn't answer last week, and it's really because I don't know. And so it's a hard question to just answer. If we're talking about who dominated in their sport the most, which is kind of
like we're talking about the greatest athlete of all time. We're not asking like who could play the most sports.
Yeah,
we're asking like in their sport, who's the greatest athlete of all time? Like when you think of like this person playing this sport, and you hinted at it a little bit, and you were like, after the blasphemy that came out of your mouth, you're like, Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan and Babe Ruth. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what are you saying right now? No, yeah. Like when you think about a sport, let me catch you right now. Don't just do it based on what your favorite sport is. Think about every sport, the best athlete in that sport, and compare them to every other great athlete. Who is the greatest athlete of all time?
Well, my gut reaction.
Oh my goodness.
And this is for me, North American sports. Like I don't know soccer really.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But North American sports, greatest athlete.
Please don't mess this up. Please don't mess this up.
The most. I gotta say Babe Ruth.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta say Babe Ruth. That's my gut reaction. He asked me the question. I'm not prepared.
Go to sleep. Just go to sleep.
I'm guessing it's Michael Jordan for you, right? I mean, Michael Jordan was more athletic than Babe Ruth, clearly, but he's not better.
It's not even a competition.
He was not better than his sport.
Your turn is done. Your turn is done. I told you had a chance to answer the question.
Your hot take is like a hot take for me.
You doubled down. I cannot believe you even doubled down. Oh my goodness, guys! The clear-cut answer of who's the greatest athlete of all time is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete of all time.
No.
You think Babe Ruth is a better athlete than Michael Jordan?
AJ, Michael Jordan might not be the greatest basketball player of all time.
Oh my God. Guys, shut off the podcast right now. Just turn it off. You don't even need to listen to what I have to say. Don't listen to this man. Whatever this man has to say, we're recording late. We always record late. Don't listen to anything else this man has to say. He literally just said that. I don't even have to say anything. My hot take's over. It's your turn. I'm not even gonna. I don't even need to defend that because that is so blasphemous. It is so blasphemous. You have no idea. You doubled down on Babe Ruth, who highlights of him. He looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy. Are you serious?
AJ.
Babe was the best athlete of all time.
AJ, Babe Ruth revolutionized his sport more than Michael Jordan revolutionized basketball.
You said it again.
AJ, who else was as look? AJ, he was one of the greatest pitchers of his time and the greatest hitter of his time in a sport where that's not even a thing.
Oh my goodness, Caleb. Okay, I am gonna do this now. We're gonna do this now. I didn't want to, but we're gonna do this now. Caleb, okay. Why is Michael Jordan not the best basketball player of all time?
I didn't say that.
You said he might not be.
I'm saying there's a debate as to if he is. We're gonna give spoiler alert. We're gonna give our top 5 NBA players of all time.
I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait for that.
I'm just saying, what I'm saying is there's a debate. There's a debate. I'm not saying he's not the greatest of all time in basketball. I'm saying there's a debate to be had.
Okay, please, think about this sensibly, though. From an athletic standpoint, you think Babe Ruth is more athletic than Michael Jordan?
No, that's why I said he's clearly not more athletic, in terms of just straight up jumping, running. So, but that's not what we're talking about, right? Because if we're talking about the most athletic, I might say Usain Bolt or something. So, what I'm saying is the best athlete in his sport, and you think of North American sports, who was the single greatest athlete in their sport, and it's Babe Ruth. AJ, baseball is a sport that's not even a two-way sport. It is a two-way sport in terms of offense, defense, but in terms of pitching and hitting. And he was clearly the greatest hitter.
Okay, I'm so
one of
glad
the greatest hitters as well.
I'm so glad you brought that up because going both ways in basketball is so much harder than going both ways in baseball.
Not
It is
not
so-
pitching, not pitching, hitting though.
Pitching and hitting is like when Babe Ruth did that. What year was it? Like 1915?
Like 1920s.
Michael Jordan did this in the 90s with
So are we
guys
talking
twice
about-
his size. Like he did this in a time. He did this in a time period when it was like common to go both ways, where you're supposed to play both ways. You see
So
what I'm
what's your
saying?
point?
My point is that Michael Jordan did it better than anybody else has ever done it in any other sport. When Babe Ruth did it, it was a time period when there were. How many great hitters do you think there were back in the 1910s?
That's my point. Is he was so much better than everyone else.
Because there wasn't that many. Like think about like even the All-Star game, or think about like All-Stars in the MLB. In the 1910s, it was like Babe Ruth and everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. That's my argument.
No, my argument is
He was
Michael
so much
Jordan.
better than everyone.
Caleb, think about this. Think about this. Michael Jordan played in an era. Who did Michael Jordan play in an era with? Just drop a name.
Like who he played against?
Yeah.
Larry Bird, whom he never beat.
Who he never beat. Who he never beat.
Well,
Larry
he never
Bird was on the tail-
no, he never
different name,
beat the
different name.
prime
Larry
Bird.
Larry Bird didn't play.
No, I know. I was just dropping that one as a no. What was that?
My argument is Michael Jordan played in an era with so many great players, like Hall of Famers. How many Hall of Famers did Babe Ruth play against?
Well, I don't even know, but they had a Hall of Fame back then.
They did have a Hall of Fame back then, but how old was baseball back then?
I mean, the Hall of Famers were just the best players. I mean, I'm sure there's a kind of a similar amount of Hall of Famers anytime.
Okay.
Look, you're making an argument. If you want to talk LeBron James and Michael Jordan, you're making an
Don't even
argument
say
for
that name. Don't even say that name.
We're going, guys. We're going here.
I cannot believe.
No, listen.
I rolled on the floor. I rolled all the way to the door. Like that's how blasphemous that was. I couldn't even.
AJ, I haven't said, we'll talk about the basketball thing when it comes to it.
Oh, I can't wait.
I know.
Tune in.
We're ready. But what you can't debate is Babe Ruth literally was so much more dominant than any person has ever been.
Because he didn't have to be that dominant though. So
is your era? What's your argument? Is your argument that Michael Jordan was more dominant than Ruth, or that Michael Jordan played in a tougher era than Ruth, like tougher competition?
I think it's both. I think
so.
Michael
you can't
Jordan
say
was,
he's more dominant. You can't say he's more dominant.
No, he was though. He was dominant in a tough era, is what I'm saying. Babe Ruth was dominant in an era where baseball was like, what was it? The dead ball era? Is that what they called it? Like before it was like.
The thing is, he did both sides. He both pitched and hit. He was the greatest all around.
Think about this. Think about how many teams were in the MLB at that point. Think about how much talent was actually in the MLB by that point. Think about this as well. We talked about this in the MLB top 5. Jackie Robinson didn't come around till the 40s.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's a good point.
There weren't any other players. It was all just a bunch of white guys.
There were plenty of good players, but
think about good though. Think about the history of baseball. How many players do you think about? I mean, we just gave our top 5 last week. How many players do you think
it's
about?
All people back then. You think I think of so many guys back then. Ty Cobb.
Okay, here's the question then. Here's the question. Then we'll go to your hot take because I want to spend all the time on this.
Yeah.
This is insane. Okay, here's the actual question then. Do you think that Babe Ruth played tougher competition than Michael Jordan?
No.
Okay, then how is he a better athlete than Michael Jordan?
I'm going to remind you of that statement later on.
Okay. No, but think about that though. If he didn't play tougher competition, how do we know he was a better athlete than Michael Jordan?
It depends on what you're saying. If we're talking about who dominated their sport the most, and I say Babe Ruth, and so it depends. There's
why did he dominate his sport?
What?
Why did he dominate his sport?
Because he was so good.
Because there was nobody else to challenge him.
Well, you could say a similar thing about Jordan.
No, don't do that though. Don't do that, though, because Michael Jordan in the 90s, people weren't talking about him as the GOAT yet. You know that. People weren't talking about him as the GOAT yet. They knew he was the best player in the NBA, but that doesn't mean Patrick Ewing, Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, who was the other team that they played? The Pistons, Isaiah Thomas. You can't say that those people didn't think, I can take Michael Jordan. How many people do you think in their right mind went up against Babe Ruth as a pitcher or went up against Babe Ruth as a hitter and was like, I can take Babe Ruth?
That's literally like my argument. He was transcendent. Like, that's what no one could take him.
He was transcendent in an era where he could be, though.
And so that's where I'm wondering. So
Here's
this is
an
the
even
thing.
better question.
Wait, real quick. I'll let you get to your thing. But what I want to say real quick is you can say that about all of sports. Sports is increasingly getting – so it's like, are we saying who's really the best player? Because otherwise, Mike Trout is my best baseball player of all time. In terms of – wait. In terms of if you put Babe Ruth against Justin Verlander right now, he wouldn't touch the ball. But
okay, no. That's what I'm saying.
But then, so if
you put Michael Jordan in his prime against anybody right now,
if you put now you're gonna hate me for this. Get ready.
Oh my God! Don't say it. If you say this man's name again,
if you put Jordan in today's NBA, wait, he would be good, but he wouldn't be Michael Jordan like we know. AJ,
do your hot take. No, we're done.
Do you think today's NBA is at a higher level than Jordan's NBA? You can always say that. So the argument is who's the greatest athlete, who dominated the most since Babe Ruth. But you can always say it's at a harder level because that's how sports is. You look at guys Jordan played against, and versus guys just jumping out of the gym in high school today. I mean, you can always make that argument.
Michael Jordan jumped out of the gym.
No, yeah, I know, but just you're saying the competition.
Do your hot take. We're done with this. Do your hot take. We would go on for hours.
Come on this, everyone. There's more to come. This discussion is not over.
We have a special guest next week, so we won't be able to touch on this as much unless he wants to talk about it.
Maybe.
But episode 5, if he doesn't talk about it, which I don't know why he wouldn't if he listens to this, because he's going to side with me, I think. I don't know. That's too much of a teaser already. Do your hot take. Come at me. Come at me, bro. Square up.
I love how your hot take was like giving me a hot take. So now I have 2 hot takes. So there we go. That was great. You're like your hot take was showing everyone else my hot take. My hot take is going into the world of football. And AJ, it's about my homeboy.
Oh no. Guys,
I'm sorry.
Like I said, go to sleep. We'll let you guys know how the rest of the podcast goes. Just go to sleep. You don't need to waste your time on this. It's okay. There's other things to listen to.
This is something most people should agree with me on.
Oh no.
I don't think you agree with me on this. Don't worry. I will say I think Mahomes is the best quarterback in football right now. So I'll say that.
Okay.
Now,
that's a good way to start.
By the way, I love how we said we don't disagree often, and we just going at it. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, my hot take. We're going to the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes should not have been Super Bowl MVP. That's
your hot take?
Yeah.
Okay. That's really more tame than I thought it was going to be. I'll be honest. That was a lot more tame than I thought it was going to be. I got super hyped up. I was like, I respect Mahomes. I respect what he did. He had an insane season last year. But honestly, that was one of, I think, the weakest in terms of Super Bowl MVP performances, that was way down there. And so way down there?
I just wanted to let you know he completed 60% of his passes, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. However,
it wasn't his best game. I'll admit that it wasn't his best game.
Yes, it's just his passer rating. One thing people might not realize was his passer rating, which is different than quarterback rating, which we talked about. Kind of encapsulates your completion percentage, touchdowns, interceptions, that stuff. Was 78.1, which was actually the lowest, other than when Tom Brady had that game against the Rams, remember? And he somehow got Super Bowl MVP when he was terrible in 2017 or something. Anyways, And it was the second lowest ever for a Super Bowl MVP quarterback. It should have gone to Damian Williams, who had the touchdown to take the lead and the touchdown to seal the game. I just wanted to let you – yeah, what's up?
I agree with you. I think Damian Williams should have got the MVP.
Okay. Well, you know what? We had briefly touched on this earlier, and I thought you would disagree. So
no,
I guess that hot take is –
I'll say this. We would not have won the game if Mahomes had not played like the fourth quarter that he did. But because it was only the fourth quarter, I agree that like he shouldn't have been the MVP. But dude, like you have to be honest with this. We would not have won the game if Mahomes had not stepped up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Well, specifically, I mean, really, it was – I'm thinking the biggest play was the big throw to Tyreek Hill, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. That was
like
the Sammy Watkins throw was good too. The Sammy Watkins throw was on the money.
Oh, there too. Yeah, yeah.
Sideline, yeah.
But it's really what the thing is. It really just was those two throws that were kind of So, anyways,
but they were down the stretch. Yeah, they were down the stretch, which like showed like why he's a great quarterback. But I agree with you, Daniel Williams, the whole game. I love that dude. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like I love, like I appreciate everyone's like talking him up from LSU. Like he's gonna be the running back one, and he's gonna take over. Not on my watch. You need to get Damian Williams the ball.
Yeah.
Damian Williams is a beast, man. People don't talk about this man. I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I wanted to say, because of course I have to be a homer again.
Yeah, go ahead.
But people trashed Aaron Rodgers so much for his performance against the 49ers in the championship game, when honestly, it was not bad at all. What was that?
You guys couldn't stop the run. I mean, that was the biggest thing.
That was really the big thing. Like, it's like he played if not maybe a better game than Mahomes, just in his Super Bowl game against the 49ers, and he got trashed for it. I mean, he had a 100 quarterback rating or passer rating and, 80% completion, over 330 yards or something, and it wasn't against a prevent defense. So anyways, that's another little thing. I know some specific people that we both might know that big time trashed the performance there. So kind of, yeah, there you go. That's it. Well, I'm glad that it was not coming at you too much after the
but hey, we're putting a pin in that other one. We were putting a pin in that other one.
We're coming back, bro.
Oh, my goodness. Guys, I fell out of my chair twice. I've never fallen out of my chair twice in a matter of 5 minutes. I fell down this way, got back up, had enough time to sit back down, and then fell that way.
I can see the thing about me saying it's debatable if he's the best basketball player. No, but I don't think that there's I don't know how you can debate it over Babe Ruth, but it's okay. That we'll put a pin in it.
Michael Jordan thinks in the finals, but it's okay. Okay, we're gonna.
How many Super Bowls? How many World Series did Babe Ruth win?
Played only white guys. Babe Ruth and Michael Jordan. We're putting a pin in it. It'll be a debate probably for the remainder of our podcast. Who knows?
7.
He went 7
what
in the 1910s.
7 rings or 6 rings?
In the 1910s. Put Babe Ruth in the era today. What happens? Okay, we're moving on. It's time for Caleb's segment. This is Beyond the Numbers.
All right, guys, welcome to Beyond the Numbers. And today we're going to basketball, and we're going to talk about effective field goal percentage. So this is a stat that I think is underrated, specifically for teams. I think it's good for players, but especially for like a team statistic, it's great for evaluating how well a team's doing. So basically the way effective field goal percentage works is you can kind of tell it's built in with field goal percentage, but it's a little bit different. It's basically a measure of how successful a team is from the field, but kind of giving equal value or giving weighted value to three-pointers based on how much they're worth. So essentially, it's the same as field goal percentage, which is how many shots you took or how many shots you made divided by how many shots you took. The way effective field goal percentage is different is that three-point is weighted 1.5. It's 150% what two-pointers worth, because that's exactly, you get 3 points, obviously, for a three-pointer, 2 points for a two-pointer. So it's worth that much more. The thing I like about this is it's like something we talked about recently is like QBR. You don't really know exactly what it's giving you. effective field goal percentage, you know exactly what it's giving you, because you don't know maybe how many 2s or 3s the team took, but it weights it mathematically perfectly how much a 3 should be weighted versus a 2. And so if a player went 5 for 10 from the field and they were all 2-pointers, their EFG, effective field goal percentage, would be 50%. They made half their shots. But if a player went 5 of 10 from the field and 2 of those shots were 3-pointers, then their effective field goal percentage would be 60%. So it's just giving that extra weight. So you think about, I think a better way to think of it actually is a player that's 6 of 10 from the field is going to be 60% if they're all 2-pointers. But a player that was 6 of 10 is 2-pointers, 60%. 4 of 10 from the field, all 3-pointers, is also 60%. So they're exactly even, and if you look it up, it's the same amount of points. 6 of 10 from 2 is 12 points. 4 of 10 from 3 is 12 points. So it just shows, it gives that extra weight it gives the 3-pointer extra weight, because making a 3-pointer is slightly more valuable, exactly, 50% more valuable than hitting the 2. So yeah, it's just a short one today. I just wanted to bring that to your attention if that's not something you knew about. Again, I'm not the football guy the basketball guy as much, and so
Get your sports straight over there.
yeah. But I thought that was really, really helpful, and I like just how mathematic it is. So you can tell it's good to look at teams. Over 45% is going to be really good, and so the best teams. It's just a great metric. At the end of the game, the team with the higher effective field goal percentage, often not that and free throws kind of together, they're often going to be a team that wins the game. So yeah, that's that. That's all I have. Hope it was helpful a little bit. Maybe something new, maybe something old, but either way, we're going on to another favorite segment, and that is High Five.
Welcome to everybody's second favorite segment, or your favorite segment, according to Caleb. Depends on where we fall each week. I mean, it got heated already. We'll see how this fans out. But it is time for High Five, a top 5 list of sporting legends, of sporting activities, whatever it may be. And we're going to sporting legends. It's time to tackle another sport, literally, as we talk about the top 5 NFL players of all time. We already talked about our MLB players. There were some statements that were made, some statements that were not made, and we've already put pins in those. We're moving on from those. We have put the past behind us, Hakuna Matata, and we're moving on to the NFL. The top 5 NFL players of all time. I went first for hot takes, so I will defer to my brother over there, Mr. Waymeyer of the Waymeyer household. Watch your mouth. Do what must be done. Give me your number 5 player of all time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna prelude this list for a moment.
Literally thought you said I'm gonna pray over this list, and I was really worried.
I mean, I don't know. You might want to be praying for me after I give this list. I don't know. So we I mentioned it last week, and AJ agreed with me that we both say this is the hardest, probably the hardest top 5 list I'll have for a while, because we both agree that football is more than anything eye test. We both said that. And the thing is, if I'm trying to do a GOAT list, I'm young. I'm just 21 years old. I haven't watched that many players. I remember Brett Favre a little bit. That was kind of like, that's when I was real young, the end of Brett. So in terms of my eye test, it's new. The way I went about this list was, this is my GOAT list, top 5 GOATs. So it might be different if we're talking about just from straight up the best player I've seen, like that's the best I've seen a guy throw a football or run a football. It's going to be definitely a different list, and we can talk about that. But in terms of I kind of went the same way with baseball. I would have Mike Trout number 1 if it's the best player I've seen. But I don't know. We might come back to some of these things. My number 5 player is none other than Barry Sanders.
Oh my gosh!
No?
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Barry Sanders only played 10 seasons. He retired at age 30, but he went to 10 Pro Bowls. He was one of only 2 players to rush in for over 1,000 yards in each of his first 10 seasons, and he won an MVP. The biggest thing for me is, have you watched Barry Sanders highlights, bro? Yeah.
Oh, this man is.
He had it all. Like, he's stepping here, stepping left, juking everyone out of their shoes and then running through the next guy and then going back around and getting 50 yards the other way. The dude was electric, and he was classy, and then just retired right at age 30. If he had gone, he could have been one of the greatest ever. I would maybe have him a little higher, but he just played 10 seasons because, again, it's a GOAT list. But that dude, like, in terms of the eye test, from highlights only, which of course you're just going to see the best, that guy was crazy. Of course, he lost yards often because he tried to go crazy, but when he went crazy, he went crazy. So Barry Sanders is my number 5.
Wow. Number 5. Wow. Okay.
I thought you were thinking that's high, but now I'm thinking you think it's low.
You're entitled to your opinion, man. At least he made it. I don't, my God.
And again, it's the 10 seasons thing. It's hard. It's hard. I didn't want to.
At this point, I'm honestly just curious about who the 4 are, because the 4 better blow my mind. I'm just letting you know right now.
You're gonna hate.
When I have Barry Sanders on my list, like, the 4 better blow my mind. I want to give some honorable mentions actually before I go into it. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on these guys because
I'll do that at the end. I'll do that.
They didn't make the list. But I want to give some honorable mentions. And so, Caleb, I will inform you. I'm sorry. Aaron Rodgers did not make my top 5 list. He's an honorable mention. He's up there. He's not top 5, though, in my opinion. I'm sorry. He's not top 5. He's up there. But he's
no offense taken.
he's not top 5.
But Mahomes is going to be on your list, isn't he? And then offense will be.
He's
taken.
Actually not.
Oh, really?
He will not be on my list. So I wanted to just like spark a fire and light all of our technology and all of our everything on fire. Wasn't going to do it. Didn't want to do it. By the end of his career, he will be top 5, if not top 3. I will put that out there. With the way he's playing right now, I have no doubt. But some other honorable mentions: Dan Marino, he's up there as well. Never won a Super Bowl, which is not on my list. Bo Jackson, we mentioned him in the previous segment. Played 2 sports, and he had a very short career. So that's why it's hard to talk about him a lot. Jerry Rice, who's one of the best wide receivers of all time. He's not
on your top 5?
He's not top 5. He's not top 5. He's up there, but he's not top 5.
Wow.
Mainly because of his speed or lack of speed compared to other guys I have on my list. Like, he was good, but he's not like up there with these guys.
Huh.
And then Devin Hester is also an honorable mention. One of the best returners of all time. So these guys, I don't know if they would be top 10, but like they're close and up there. Okay. Yeah. Number 5. I did have to go with a homer pick for number 5. And it's someone from kind of back in the day. But I wanna explain why he's on my list. Because it is kind of a homer pick, but at the same time, if you understand who this man actually was when he played the game of football, the human joystick, Dante Hall, is number 5 on my list. Dante Hall was one of the best wide receivers, or let me rephrase. He was one of the best kick returners and punt returners of all time, bar none. If you watch highlights of this dude, he returned kicks and punts like nobody you have ever seen or will ever see. I mentioned Devin Hester as an honorable mention. Dante Hall was so much better than Devin Hester. His speed, his quickness, his cuts, all this different stuff. And then he was a wide receiver for a team that had Trent Green as their quarterback. So the Chiefs weren't even that good during that time period. Caleb's giving me the most confused look ever. Dante Hall, when he would catch the ball, his yards after catch was ridiculous. You watch highlights of this guy. He would make 2-3 people miss before he was even tackled. So the fact that Dante Hall's on my list is not just because of him being a wide receiver, but is so much more because of his all-purpose yards. His all-purpose yards are up there all time for me. All time. And so he's not any higher on my list, but he has to be number 5. Because when I think of the greatest all-purpose guy of all time, Dante Hall's up there. Dante Hall is like in that like top 3 list of all-purpose yards guys. Like, he's up there. And so he squeaked in number 5. Like, he squeaked in number 5, but then he also can catch the ball and make people miss for a team that wasn't that great. Like, think about that fact in and of itself. Like, he didn't play for a great Chiefs team, and he still produced. His nickname was the human joystick, last of all. The human joystick. Like, when you have a nickname like that, you are you are a talent. You are a talented individual who can play the game of football like nobody we've ever seen before. He squeaked in, but Dante Hall's number 5. Dude,
your top 5 lists are kind of whack.
Hey, they're unique. They're unique.
All right.
But when I look at it from like a positional standpoint.
Yeah.
And so when I look at that, like, I'm like, Devin Hester maybe, but Devin Hester wasn't near the wide receiver that Dante Hall was.
Really? Wow. All right.
And speed kills, dude. Speed kills in football.
Dude, as a Chiefs fan.
Bro, Legion of Zoom? See.
Oh, man. AJ?
Little unique, but there you go.
No, that's fine. You're going to
have as big of a problem as Derek Jeter last week?
Oh, no. That's – wow. We're coming back to that eventually.
Oh, no.
Because that's a problem. I'll just put it that way.
You said there are a lot of problematic things you said too, but we're putting a pin in it, guys. We're putting a pin in it. We promise.
It's great. We love it. Hopefully you love it too, bro. You're gonna hate me.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
For my number 4.
You better not have. You told me you wouldn't.
Bro, I hate me for number 4.
Stop it. Don't you dare say his name. I swear, Caleb. Don't do it. Don't say his name.
My number 4 won multiple MVPs.
No.
And multiple Super Bowls.
Stop. You said you wouldn't.
4,
you made a
Tom Brady.
Guys, that's 3 times I've left. If you're listening to the podcast, I have now stood up and walked away or fallen down.
I hate myself for this.
Are you out of your mind?
I hate myself for this.
Then why'd you do it?
Because I could not do it.
I
could not do it. This is why I wanted to put. Look,
I can say so much, right? Ooh, okay, keep on.
Is Tom Brady the best quarterback I've ever seen play? Definitely not. But when you look at what he's put together, has he played on amazing teams? Has he gotten lucky in the playoffs? Yes and yes. AJ and I are totally in agreement with this. But the thing is, I wanted to put Joe Montana on the list. Couldn't put him.
Oh my gosh. I can't even sit still anymore.
And AJ just knocked his camera over.
I can't sit still. I knocked my camera. That's 4 times. Caleb, I'm going to have to glue myself to the seat. What are you doing?
The argument for Joe Montana is similar. I wanted to put him on the list, and I realized it's so similar. The argument against Joe Montana is too similar to the argument against Tom Brady. And look, have you looked at Joe Montana's stats? Have you seen the numbers he's put up? I could not put him over Tom Brady. I couldn't. Again, I haven't seen him play. I don't have the eye test. Tom Brady, in terms of the GOAT status, I have to put him on the list. He's number 4. He's not number 1.
You don't have to. You decided to. You entered that field all by yourself. Ladies and gentlemen,
I don't think you can put Joe Montana over Tom Brady. I really don't think you can. I don't think you can. When you look statistically, and the fact that Joe Montana played with great players.
Who's a better quarterback?
Joe Montana or Tom Brady?
Mm-hmm.
I never watched Joe Montana, so I don't know. But I can't. No. I can't put. I have to say Tom Brady. I don't know.
What has happened to you? What has happened to you? Ladies and gentlemen, Caleb Waymire and I text almost every day, and it's mainly been about the podcast of recent. The day after we recorded episode 2, we were getting ready, and we were starting preparation for episode 3, and Caleb texted me, guys, just so you know how much his man is flipped. He is flipped. He texted me the day after we recorded episode 2 and said, can't wait for us to do top 5 NFL players. It's going to be great that Tom Brady is in neither of our top 5.
I said this. I said, I love how we're both about to leave Tom Brady out of our top 5 NFL players.
What did you do?
My intention all the way up until today was to leave him out. But as I was looking at as I was looking for quarterbacks, as I was thinking about quarterbacks.
You don't have to look that far.
No, you can't put him statistically. He's not that close to Tom Brady. Granted, he played in an older era where quarterbacking wasn't, and he has less Super Bowls. Yes. Do I think Brady has been incredibly lucky? Yes. Dude, I'm not on Brady's side here. You know that. But I'm just saying.
I'm not sure anymore.
He's not the best quarterback I've seen. Both Rodgers and Mahomes are better. Even Breeze, it's I don't know. I just when you look at a guy like Montana, who is the one guy thinking I was gonna put Montana, and then I was looking at it like I can't put this guy over Brady. I thought Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning's really good. I think you might I think you're underrating Peyton Manning. I had to do Tom Brady. Again, this is the GOAT list. This is not the eye test list, but this is just the GOAT list. There you go.
I hate you. I hate you for doing that.
I hate me too, but that's how it is.
Definitely need to pray on this list now.
Tom Brady is not a top 10 quarterback in the 2020 season. He's not. I'm going to say that.
No,
he's not the best quarterback.
According to some people, he is, which we're going to peep in a future episode. Who we're talking to. You know exactly who we're talking to right now.
But he is not even the most talented, the best quarterback, the most talented of his era. But in terms of the GOAT accomplishments, even the numbers he's put together.
Make up your mind.
No, I'm telling you, in terms of the GOAT list and his accomplishments, what he's done, he has to be on the list. In terms of just straight talent, he's not even the best of his era. But we don't want to get us to go way too long, so let's hear your number 4. If you can get over that. Fact.
I'll get over it. I'll try to forgive you for that.
You're so disappointed in me this podcast.
I'm very disappointed. When you hyped that up, I was like, surely he's not about to do this. Okay. Anyways, number 4 for me is another wide receiver.
Okay.
Very talented wide receiver. I mentioned speed kills. He was one of the fastest wide receivers of all time, I think. And his stats are off the chart, especially single game stats. He once caught 3 passes for 3 touchdowns. Number 4 is Randy Moss. Wow. Randy Moss is one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. And yes, I believe he's better than Jerry Rice. That's why he's number 4. I believe Randy Moss, athletically wise, from a wide receiver standpoint, is a better wide receiver than Jerry Rice. Keep in mind, he also played for a Vikings team that was decent but not very good. But here's the thing, his football IQ was crazy. He was such a smart player. He knew when he got by a guy, he had to do this, and he would get the ball. Especially when he played for a certain Patriots quarterback. Every time he would run by a guy, and he would have him beat, he'd throw his hand up. He knew he was that good. And my favorite highlight, one of the reasons why Randy Moss is a top 5 guy, he was a team player. Because one of my favorite highlights of Randy Moss is at the end of a half where he catches a Hail Mary pass, flips it over his head to his teammate, runs it in for a touchdown. That is football IQ. That is team. That is a team player. That is someone who loves the game of football. And that is someone who is a top 5 player of all time. He's one of the best wide receivers of all time. Don't even need to say a lot more on that. Randy Moss, number 4, he's up there. He has to be up there for me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the greats. That's good. That's sweet.
I love how he went from Caleb's number 4, 10-minute conversation. AJ's number 4. Yep, that's good.
Yeah, hey, he was that guy. He was great.
He was that. It's true.
My number 3 is my only defensive player on this list, and he is widely known as the greatest defensive player of all time.
Please say the right person.
Lawrence Taylor.
Okay. Proud of you.
Yeah. So he was actually the last defensive player to win an MVP award. Mm-hmm. And the dude just changed defenses in terms of one guy, in terms of a defensive star, he was the guy. Quarterbacks feared him, most intimidating player, just wrecked. He changed the game in terms of how a defensive player could impact the game. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's widely regarded as probably the greatest of a defensive player ever. And so he slots in at number 3 for me.
No argument here. Now we're speeding up. Now we're getting into it. Number 3 for me is the only quarterback on this list, and it is in fact Joe Montana. Joe Montana has to be on this list. He is one of, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. He has Super Bowl rings to prove it. He has the ability to play the quarterback position to prove it. He has highlights to prove it. And the fact that when he got traded from the 49ers to, yes, the Kansas City Chiefs, he instantly made them a playoff team. Like that, when you do that at the age that you are a great quarterback, a great quarterback. And yes, he's better than Tom Brady, 100%, absolutely. You can give me all the stats you want. You can say that Tom Brady has played for better teams, all that stuff. If I want a quarterback to win a Super Bowl, hear this. If I want a quarterback to win a Super Bowl, outside of my boy, obviously, it's Joe Montana. I want Joe Montana to take my team to a Super Bowl because I think he can do it. I think he could do it. Absolutely. So he has to be a top 5 player. He played for the 49ers, like I said. He played for the Chiefs. Some of his highlights that he has, he could put some zip on the ball, man. This guy could throw the football. And oh, by the way, his backup quarterback, it was just a guy named Steve Young. So no big deal. Like, it's not like he had another Hall of Famer backing him up and still outplayed him every single game. Yeah, exactly, Caleb. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
He's probably just outside my list. I think he's obviously a great, but I mean, I don't have him over Tom Brady.
Of course you don't.
Just again, I didn't see him play. I never watched him play. I've seen highlights, but it's kind of I don't have a lot to base that off of, but just looking at the numbers and the also just the team he was on. Too. Again, Brady's on the great team. It's it's just a similar argument, and because of that, got to put Brady above him. But I don't hate the decision. I respect that. I thought he was going on my list for sure at the beginning. I thought definitely, but I had to leave him just out. He'd probably be number 6 for me, but not top 5.
I'm shaking my head for you guys that are listening. I just shook my head off.
Yeah. All right. My number two NFL player of all time is also my number 1 running back of all time. And
better than Barry Sanders.
None other than Jim Brown.
Okay, I respect that.
So, yeah, Jim Brown was kind of the first great running back. He played only 9 seasons again. He retired at age 29. So it's another one of those guys that retired early. But it's insane. He went to the Pro Bowl every year. He led the league in rushing every single year except for once. Like, that's unprecedented. And he holds the record for yard. He has the current record for yards per game for a running back. So the dude was just all around great and set a new precedent. So
he was a baller. Jim Brown did work, man.
Yeah.
He was insane. I respect that. Jim Brown is a great talent. He's not on my list, but that's a good point. I forgot about him. He's a great talent. Number 2, you already mentioned him. Greatest defensive player of all time, Lawrence Taylor. Yep. He has to be in the top 5 list. I mean, we're seeing guys like Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack,
JJ Watt,
a guy like Chris Jones or Frank Clark on the Chiefs, or Julius Peppers, or like people that like we think of defensive players. Brian Urlacher, Ed Reed, like all these household names. Ray Lewis. None of them compare to Lawrence Taylor. When you line up as an offensive lineman against Lawrence Taylor, your life was over. Your life was over because you knew this man was either going to get to the quarterback or he was going to get pretty dang close every single time. Like, you were not going to block him. Think about that. Think about lining up against a guy that in some way, shape, or form is going to beat you every single time. That is insane. And that's exactly what impacted the game. Yeah. He impacted the game like nobody else. He has to be on the list. So he's a little bit higher for me than on yours, but he's got to be on the list. He's number 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I am 3, you am 2. That's close.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Obviously I agree. So my number 1.
I'm curious right now because you listed a lot of top names.
Yeah, and my number 1 is a guy that's not going to be on your top 5. So
okay,
I'm surprised. Yeah, I don't know. My number 1 of all time is Jerry Rice.
Of all time?
Bro, You
Of
look at this
all
guy's.
time? Are
He
you
He
silly?
leads the NFL. Leads the NFL in receiving yards with basically 23,000. No one else has 20,000. He leads the NFL in touchdowns, all touchdowns, like
Of
running
all
back
time.
or wide receiver with over 200 touchdowns. Leads the in receptions, yards. He holds 36 NFL records.
Of all
Yes,
time.
Jerry Rice is the best NFL player of all time. He was an MVP. Went to 13 Pro Bowls. He was consistent. If you look at just his numbers, he was consistently putting up huge numbers, leading the league in yards, leading in yards per game. He had 115 yards per game in 95. Jerry Rice, I know you disagree, but Jerry Rice was the greatest. He's the greatest NFL player of all time. I mean, the top three.
That makes him the greatest wide receiver.
The greatest wide receiver. I put him top 3 with Lawrence Taylor, Jim Brown, and Jerry Rice. They're kind of like interchangeable a little bit. I don't know exactly, but he's the greatest wide receiver of all time.
No, you better take a stand on this. You can't say interchangeable with your top 3. That's cheating, dude.
Well, I did rank them. Taylor, Brown, and then Rice won. So that's my ranking.
I'm speechless.
It's just the time. He put in 20 years of just consistency.
So does.
What do you mean?
What's the quarterback's name? Vinny Testaverde. He played in the league for like 17, 18 years. And he was a backup quarterback for all of them.
Setting records every year? Was he leading the league every year? Jerry Rice is unmatched. No one is coming close. Look, he holds every NFL receiving record.
Why does that make him the greatest of all time, though? Why do you have to hold a record to be the greatest of all time?
I mean, it's.
Honestly, why do you have to hold a record to be the greatest of all time? Does Michael Jordan hold a record in every category?
He has more. He has any player in the NFL ever. He has more yards and more touchdowns than them. That's huge.
Okay.
I wasn't watching him play. Again, this isn't the eye test. This is over what they've done in their career.
Clearly, it's not the eye test.
Wow.
Clearly,
he was a Super Bowl MVP as well. By the way,
that's. Cool.
I think you're underrating Jerry Rice.
Maybe. I think you're about to underrate my number 1, though.
Okay.
You put him at number 5 because the greatest NFL player of all time is Barry Sanders.
All right.
Barry Sanders did. I don't even know what to say anymore. Barry Sanders did things in shoulder pads that people can't do naked. That's how agile Barry Sanders was. Like, honestly, think about that statement I just made. Barry Sanders did things not too much. Barry Sanders did things in shoulder pads that most people wouldn't even dream of. And oh, by the way, he did it while holding a football with everyone zeroed in on him. Think about that. When someone has a football, everyone is zeroed in on them, especially if it's a run play. If the quarterback has it, then you're watching receivers. If it's a run play, you have 11 guys on you. 11. Caleb. 11. 11 grown men. And Barry Sanders made them look like absolute fools every single time, single time he touched the ball. He was human, just like Jerry Rice and all these other guys are human. But Barry Sanders, y'all, please just go watch a highlight reel of Barry Sanders. Just go watch a highlight reel of Barry Sanders. He's wearing shoulder pads and juking dudes out like they're toddlers. Like, have y'all seen Instagram and Facebook videos of like an NBA player or like a soccer player like running around like 20 kids with a ball and none of them can get it? That was Barry Sanders every time he stepped on a football field. Dude, there's a clip of Barry Sanders missing a tackle after a defensive lineman tried to tackle him, and the defensive lineman was turned around because 2 other guys were tackling him and literally thought the play was over.
I remember
he stood up and looked around like this. And he looked around, and Barry Sanders came out his backside and ran for a touchdown. I cannot even believe you put him at number 5. Like, thank goodness he's in your top 5. But there's no way you can leave him out of a top 2 conversation of all time.
Hey, if you're looking at
most agile person I've ever seen with shoulder pads on. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, I probably agree. Yeah.
And like the 10 seasons thing, like that doesn't make a difference to me. In fact, it actually like proves my point more, because if he only played 10 seasons and he did that, imagine what he would have done if he played longer, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm speechless. I'm speechless at your list. I have so many issues with your list.
Are you serious?
I have so many issues. You know what we need to do? We need to post like these lists somewhere, like on social media or something, and get like feedback from people. Because this is very, 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 very interesting all of a sudden. A lot more interesting.
You know, this is my thing with Barry Sanders is, if we're going the most electric player of all time, yes, Barry Sanders. He's the most highlight reel. Sorry, I butchered that word. Highlight. He's the biggest highlight reel NFL player of all time. Yes, I agree with that. But in terms of, I have in my top 5 players of all time. But in terms of guys like out of 10 years or what? 10 years. You know, led the league 4 times in rushing. So it's not like it's again. He's the most electric, but it's not the guy that you're not going to give him the ball so much on 3rd and 1 when you need 1 yard, because he's not so much the pounded, and he's the guy who run and juke everyone out, which is great. Like in terms of just talent, yes, he's amazing, electric. Like you said, he can move like no one else. He can juke, run through you, dance around you. But what I'm saying is, he's not the guy who's like Jim Brown, going to just pound the ball and lead the league every single year. I mean, again, you can't expect a guy to lead the league every single year. That's just why I have him down a little bit, is because he's the guy that also, a lot of times if you watch, you know, you see the highlight reel plays, but then there's all the plays that, again, that's not discrediting him, because he did rush for, so, you know, he was clearly probably the best running back going at his time, where he's
at his time. I'm so sick of you, man. This is like a Kevin Hart moment where he was on First Take with Stephen A. and Skip Bayless, and he just goes, "I'm so sick of you, man." Like that's the point I've reached. Like this is madness, Caleb. You just said you wouldn't give the ball to Barry Sanders on 3rd and 1. You just said that.
No. I'm saying not as much as other guys, because he's more the guy that's going to dance around and like try and get the extra yards. He's not the pound it straight up the gut type of guy. So I'm saying it's not like there's no weakness in his game. Yeah, he was electric, but if you just watch the highlight reels, of course he's going to be electric. Now, I'm not saying that, again, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that to say he's overrated. I don't think he's overrated. I don't think he's number 1, but I just don't have him as – I put Jim Brown as my number 1 running back and him number 2. So that's just why he's not my number 1. I'm not hating on Barry Sanders.
Of course you're not. We're going to have to revisit these very, very upcoming and very – I can't even make any sentences anymore, man. This is – my brain is so frazzled by this
episode was nuts.
Gobbledygook. Oh, my goodness.
This episode is crazy. And we're all going to regret this podcast after this episode.
Well, I'm not going to regret this podcast. That is a perfect transition into our closeout. Y'all, next week, we have our first special guest coming on. We are so pumped. We're not going to reveal his name, anything. I have a special treat for you guys when he comes on. Caleb and this special guest are not even going to see each other until the segment starts. And I am so pumped for it. I'm bringing my popcorn, literally. I'll probably have some food with me. I cannot wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. We want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Caleb and Caldwell. It's been a blast to engage with you guys again in biblical conversation and sport conversations and things like that. Make sure to follow us on social media. They're down below here in the video. Just make sure you leave a review as well. 5-star reviews, as we said last week. No 4-star reviews. Come on now. 5-star reviews. And continue to give us feedback. We love to get feedback. I know there's not a lot of traction going on right now, whether it be with COVID or things like that, but We want you guys to give us your opinions on different things. We want to even add some segments in. Caleb and I have been talking about that recently. So there's a lot of fun stuff coming, a ton of fun stuff coming after episode 4 drops. After next week with our special guest, we're going to have
some questions too. Questions,
yes, and questions, yes.
Stuff.
Yeah, after episode 4 drops 2 weeks from today, we're going to have some more YouTube content dropping. So Caleb and I are thinking through some different ideas, and we're going to drop the first edition of that, or first whatever that looks like, after episode 4 drops. So stay tuned for that as well. It's not just going to be the podcast. We are pumped. Caleb, any final thoughts on today's episode? It was crazy.
It was wild. I mean, every episode's getting more and more wild. So, it's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I thought it was great, but, we'll see.
Hey,
I don't know
what
what
your
people
guys'
think.
thoughts. We'll post a teaser teaser was already seen on Instagram and Facebook. So you guys already kind of got the teaser and got the full edition of it now. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're so pumped for our special guest next week. But until then, I'm Caldwell.
I'm Caleb.
And we'll talk to you guys soon. God bless.